Fredericksburg Live. Go, see, do.
Thank you. What up, y'all? This is Anthony Campbell. See? That's what I'm saying.
What up, y'all?
What up, y'all? Hey.
Okay,
All right,
okay,
here we
okay.
go. Here we go.
Get serious, get serious.
What's going on? And see, now here we go. Serious now, here we are. How y'all doing? This is Anthony Campbell, and welcome to another edition of Fredericksburg Live. Today I have the distinct pleasure of having sitting right next to me the First Lady, our very own First Lady of Blues, Miss Gaye Adegbalola. Gaye, thank you so much for sitting in with us today. I've been looking forward to this opportunity to sit next to you and talk about everything that is you, all of your accomplishments. There's so much that we're going to learn today from you.
How long is this show?
You know what? We might have to end up doing a part 1 and part 2 if need be. That's what we'll do. But we want the whole story of you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just teasing.
No, that is very true. A little bit about that. We've got a little bit of background on a lot of what we've done. We were going to script it and figure out from there how we're going to do it. But I think the best thing to do is for y'all to just sit in and let the tape roll, and we just kind of see where we go with that. Gaye, tell me a little bit about how you came to be the entertainer that we know today. So much of the experience of who you are is born out of a creative nature that has always been inside you, that probably even transcends your music. Tell me a little bit about how it all started for you.
Well, I guess you got to go back to the source, and that would be Mama and Daddy.
Okay.
Okay. My dad was a musician. My dad was, without a doubt, the most creative person I've ever met. He was an artist. He was a writer. He could put together shows. Anytime anybody needed a fundraiser here in Fredericksburg, and we're talking black folks in the black school, band uniforms or the American Legion or whatever, he would put a show together, and he had the talent of bringing all kinds of people together to put on a show. My mother was an incredible organizer, and from her I learned how to get things done. If you're putting together a CD, you can't just go and put it together and put it out. You have to time yourself and plan that thing. And my dad, while he used to put on all these programs for fundraisers back in the day, he took that same kind of talent and dedication, and he started a young people's theater group. He actually started in the late 60s, and I came home to help work on it in 70, 71, and Harambe lasted, until 87.
Harambe.
So that was Harambe 360 Degrees Experimental Theater, Inc. And it was so essential for young people, teens mainly, to have a creative outlet, because this was right when schools were really starting to desegregate. Okay. Mind you now, I didn't say integrate. So black athletes, the guys, they had a role to play, and they had acceptance in the high school more. But girls in particular, they couldn't be cheerleaders. They weren't in the drama club. And those guys that weren't athletes, they needed an outlet too.
Right.
So it was through Harambe that we had original plays. We had a writing class. We had an adult acting group that did plays like Raisin in the Sun and Pearly Victorious. We had a drumming group. Marines came down from Quantico and taught drumming. Girls from Mary Washington College, black girls, came over to Harambe to help teach dance and singing. And we had about, I guess at our peak, we had about 80 kids participating on a regular basis. And my dad did this. My dad passed in 77, and I carried it on for a while. We had a great board of directors. I tell you who was in Harambe, who my dad helped to train, was Xavier Richardson.
Oh, my goodness.
Couldn't act at all. but guess
Look at that
what?
one.
Yeah, but guess what? We gave him all the money to handle. He was a kid in high school,
Ah,
and he paid all the bills, and he took the money. We had a Miss Black Teenage Fredericksburg pageant. We had a Black Arts Festival, which is still going on.
right.
We had a Kwanzaa group, and it was an incredible experience.
Excellent.
Yeah. The other thing, my mother was a really wonderful actress,
Hmm.
and she used to do poems and used to be in plays, and I learned that from her. I also learned from her, she ran the youth canteen for the teens in Fredericksburg, and after she'd bring the old 78s home when they changed the jukebox, and I played, the Dominoes, the Clovers, all those people,
That's going way
Ruth
back,
Brown,
Gaye.
until the grooves turned white, right? And my dad, he had a jazz combo, and my house was full of music growing up. So as we were talking earlier, people just see you on stage and they think it's all fun
Right.
because they're being entertained, but it's just so much work and so much business. It's called show business,
That's very true.
and so you don't have a career in music unless you know somebody and got a lot of money and you got contacts. That's one route, but the top 40 is just that. The top 40 is 40 people,
Right.
and there are millions of people trying to do what I've been able to do and make a living doing.
Yeah, kids, I hope you're paying attention to that, because that's good knowledge for you right
Oh yeah,
there.
you have a lot that you have to do.
Gaye, let me ask you something. You talked about this, your parents being the catalyst for this from your creative side. What time frame are we talking about? What era was this that you're talking about when your folks were
My
doing
folks are doing this? All right, well, just first of all, I was born, raised, still live in Fredericksburg. So this was while I was all the way through elementary school and high school. Any time there was an event at the school, my dad was the MC. And it's amazing because what he did, he imitated all the preachers in
Oh,
town.
yeah.
He could imitate each one, their mannerisms, their diction, whatever. He emceed all, he not emceed, he was the commentator for all the football games.
Oh, my goodness.
He knew how to do that kind of thing. And like I said, my mother was just so creative. My mother spearheaded the campaign to get Reverend Davies elected to city council and then to mayor. And my mom would organize this thing so that block by block, she had people registered and block captains and transportation. My mom organized the sit-ins here in Fredericksburg. And it's quite a creative task to move people from Mayfield to downtown with no transportation, with no telephones. People didn't have phones. People didn't have cars.
Right.
And yet and still we shut down 3 or 4 lunch counters in downtown Fredericksburg. So it was my mom's creativity and my mom's organizational skills that also spearheaded not just my entertaining side, but also my sense of activism. Yes.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because what that tells our listeners is we're talking about a side or a time frame in Fredericksburg that wasn't very attractive in the eyes of the way we would look back now. I mean, for me, as a younger person, so much of what happened during the civil rights movement was historic. When we talked about the marches in Selma, when we talked about even the Martin Luther King speaking on the Mall in Washington, D.C., all of that is...
I was there.
You were there.
63.
See, all of those things that we talk about are, from a historic standpoint, it's one of those very sobering realities when we think about the fact that actually, all of this went on in Fredericksburg as well.
Yes.
Black people during that period were also dealing with the same problems that they had in the South. Maybe not as front page, from the standpoint of they got the coverage.
Well, part of what happened all down through the South, is that every town went after the same chain stores. So it wasn't just in Fredericksburg that we were picketing and sitting in at Woolworths. All over the South, Woolworth was being hit. So we were just one link in a chain. You know, it took everybody working in the same direction. Sure. So it was Newberry's, Grant's, People's Drugstore, now CVS. But what I was going to say is that while we were struggling for these rights, while we were struggling to sit with whites, to eat with whites, to go to school with whites, and we thought that was the be-all, end-all, now in my old age, I look back and I realize what a phenomenal growing up experience I had. First and foremost, the teachers that I had at Walker Grant, they're the best teachers I've ever had. And I've gone to several schools, several colleges. And my teachers there were great teachers because everybody put such an importance on education.
Sure.
Right. And at the same time, you know, I'm looking at this poster of a dance that's going on at a sugar shack, and I knew that too.
Right.
You know, we had the dances, and dance was my life. People nowadays, they'll go to a blues concert and there's Etta James on the stage. I grew up dancing to Etta James. I went to a dance in Richmond, and Ray Charles was the band that was playing.
Oh, my goodness.
You see, and What I Say had just come out and everybody was doing the Birdland. All right, so see the woman in the red dress, see the woman with the red dress on, she can Birdland all night long. I knew that. And that was my... those were my formative years. I had such good things in my formative years. And so now, and you know, we played in the streets. We played tag, we played hide and go seek, we played red light, you know. We shot marbles, and it was a joyous thing. So when I look at people with Wii machines or whatever,
right.
Yeah, and when I look at people playing on computers, and I'm talking young people,
sure.
It's like, well, I had a good time.
Right.
But at the time, I thought there was something better.
Right.
You know, I thought there was something better. I left Fredericksburg in 1961, and I went to school in Boston. I went to Boston University. I majored in biology and chemistry, minored in chemistry, and I thought I was coming back home to be a doctor and to help my people. Well, I like to party a little too much.
Yeah, right. Us,
yes,
right?
I don't begrudge a doctor any medicine because any money. You know, when you go and pay the doctor and you say, "Oh my God, he charged whatever," that doctor gave up his youth or her youth to be a doctor.
To pursue that career.
Yeah. And I didn't give up my youth. I mean, you sit there for hours and memorize stuff. You just, you know, you're there every weekend, every day. So I went up to school in Boston thinking that I was going to Freedom up north.
And that's what we were led to believe, that life was different. Shangri-La would be up north.
It was different.
Everybody up there was holding hands.
Yeah.
And,
so the racism was quite the same. It was just, you know, covert instead of overt.
Right.
Yeah. It was there.
Yeah.
So, you know, I moved away from the philosophy of Dr. King, which was to love everybody and hold hands and to fight for equality.
Now,
I went into a whole Black Power kind of philosophy.
Now, let me ask you a question. I have heard that happened. You tell me your experience, but a lot of young blacks during that period of time felt like Martin Luther King's method of passive resistance and the nonviolent side just wasn't moving the bar fast enough. Was that what you felt was the catalyst behind you becoming more of a more militant, I guess, if you use that word?
I think the catalyst became, you know, you saw so many black folks who were peacefully protesting get beat up, get fire hosed, have dogs. So many black folks today are scared of dogs. Not pit bulls, but German shepherds. A lot of people, especially my age, are really scared of dogs because dogs were sicked on you. You know, sick them, go get them, eat them. And so it came to a point like, why am I going to let somebody be violent with me and I'm trying to be like them? How can I want to be like these people who hate me? So it was a different thing. So at that point, I stopped straightening my hair. You see, it was a thing back in the day where blacks felt that your hair was good hair, you know, and something was wrong with nappy hair. You know, that was the opposite side. Straight hair was good hair. By the same time, token, up until I took an African name to kind of demystify. So many people are afraid to say my name, and all they have to do is look at it. All you have to do is look at it and read it. But if it said Wojciechowicz or something like that,
Right.
they would read that.
Right.
So there was so much hatred that we were putting on ourselves. You know, and things, just little things that you don't even think about.
Sure.
You think about black male. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's white male. You know,
Right. Yeah.
Or devil's food cake is black or brown, and angel's food cake is white. So white is always representing fairness, and at the same time, these are the people who are hating you and beating you and bombing you and killing little girls in churches, right? So yeah, I became more militant, and I adopted a philosophy of Malcolm X.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my philosophical guide at the time, and musically it was Nina Simone.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm very proud to say that I'm going to be playing in the Nina Simone Festival in her hometown in September. Yeah,
Excellent.
excellent.
And now where is that?
Tryon, North Carolina.
Tryon, North Carolina.
Tryon, North Carolina.
Now remember, Gaye, Fredericksburg Live is based on the happenings that go on in our area.
Okay.
But because it is net based, you know, people can see this
Oh,
all over
okay.
the world.
Right,
so
right.
that's very good to know. So for those of you who will be in Tryon, North Carolina, in
Yeah, it's that big, but it's down past Asheville.
Okay.
Actually, so
Okay.
it's way over in western.
Okay,
North
it's in
Carolina.
western North Carolina. Well, that's excellent. Now, you mentioned the philosophical differences that led you in the direction that you went, but it also, the fabric somehow was knit together to connect you musically as well. So was it at this time that we were starting to not only develop a desire to tell your story or the story of your people through music, to also to share that social concern that you had for your people and for our advancement? I keep saying your people; they're my people too. I'm trying to be independent, but this is very much a part of who I am and,
Right,
and
exactly.
how we became a part of this.
Right.
But I'm enjoying hearing it from an historic side.
Yeah, at this particular time in my life, I was living in New York. After I finished school in Boston, I went to D.C., lived for about 18 months. That's a whole nother thing. But then I moved to New York. I felt I was ready for the big city now.
Big time.
Big time. And it was in New York that my musical awareness was really broadened. I really got into gospel music because the gospel music that I knew here was, trust and obey, 'cause there's no other way, or leaning on Jesus.
Sure.
Yeah, it wasn't, get right, church, and let's go
Right.
home. Man, I saw James Cleveland. I saw the Swan Silvertones. I saw the Blind Boys of Alabama, the Blind Boys of Mississippi.
Jackson Southern
Yeah,
Airs.
I saw the Swan Silvertones. That was
Yeah.
my favorite group. I saw the Staple Singers probably 20 or 30 times. And so that was one piece of my history that I had been missing. But I also got heavily into jazz. And I lived across the street from a jazz club. And so I got to see Pharaoh Saunders, and I got to see Archie Shepp and James Handy. I fell in love with John Coltrane's music.
Oh,
He
yeah.
had died at the time,
Yeah.
but I got to see his piano player and his drummer. And then I got to see some wonderful singers like Betty Carter. So I grew a lot. And then at that time I married, And my husband was working with and helping to manage a group called the Last Poets. Now, if you read anything about Gil Scott-Heron dying this past week, he will say that he grew out of the Last Poets. As far as I know, the Last Poets were the first rap group ever. They did poetry to drum beats. To drum beats.
Okay.
And I mean, we used to have this in my living room. We would get on the subway and do it. Yeah. And they had a loft on 125th Street called the East Wind, where we would gather and do poetry and song and dance. And it was an exciting time. We saw ourselves as being revolutionaries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we embraced our blackness as opposed to trying to be white.
Right.
We just loved ourselves instead of not loving ourselves.
Well, that would have been a revolutionary concept, certainly in Fredericksburg at the time, because I know as a child it was, it may not have even been stated, but it was understood even within families. There were darker family members that somehow weren't viewed as favorably as the lighter-skinned family members.
Exactly.
So I remember seeing that as a child, where even subconsciously maybe we had become, in some instances, our own worst enemy.
Right. We're back to good hair.
Right.
You know, and if that's not a put down of who you are, I don't know what is.
Right.
You know.
And we still hear a lot of that today.
Oh, yeah.
We still hear a lot of that
sure.
today. Now, what brought you back home?
Easy. Well, I came back home because I was raising my child by myself, and I knew that New York City was not a place to raise my child. I knew that. So that brought me back home. Some heartbreak brought me back home. And when I got back here, I was just in a fog for about a year. And I got a job doing the census for the public schools.
Okay.
And Mr. Sneed was the school superintendent. And that following year, they needed 3 science teachers at the middle school. And he knew I had a degree in science. And he asked me to come teach. And I'd never had an education class, but they gave me 2 years to get certified. And I took to it. I took to it. Science is like doing magic shows.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I loved it.
Watching the light come on for these little kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't exactly little kids. I taught 8th grade science. And the exciting thing about 8th grade is that from one day to the next, they don't know if they're men and women or boys and girls.
I hear you.
That's the era of raging hormones. Raging hormones.
Yeah.
And I think that any teacher who teaches 7th or 8th grade, they should be paid double. Yeah, they should be paid double.
So now you taught in Fredericksburg City Schools.
I taught in Walker Grant. My room, for the most part, was my homeroom when I went to school back in high school.
Was not.
Yes, it was.
That's cool. Talk about going home.
Going home, right.
In multiple aspects. I knew you taught because I've met over the years a number of your former students, and they all spoke very highly of you. Miss A, I think, is how you were affectionately known by many of your students. And you said earlier that's how you know when that they were a former student of yours based on how they refer to you. Now, it seemed that there were accolades that were heaped upon you during a period of time while you were teaching that led you to believe that not only were you a good teacher in their eyes, but you were recognized as such. Tell us about that.
Okay, I guess I did some innovative things in the classroom. For example, they want you to teach experiments, but no school has money for equipment for 30 kids to do the same experiment at the same time. So what I did was I got a set of equipment for every unit. I would have 5 different stations, and I'd divide the class in groups, and they would rotate around the stations so that everybody had a hands-on. I'd also give a pretest for each unit, and if some kid got 100 on the pretest, then obviously I don't have anything to teach them.
Right.
So what you do is you make up a separate plan for those kids. It was, yeah, and then I also did some memorization too. For every unit, I took the major facts of the unit, and each kid would have to memorize them and stand up individually and say those facts to me.
Put them on the spot.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Right.
you make them learn.
Sure.
You make them learn. Sometimes you have to make them learn while the rest of it is fun. And then I would lecture a couple of days on a unit, and the lecture would always be demonstrations. So, for example, if you're doing like Newton's laws of motion,
Right.
okay, and there's a demonstration on inertia.
Right.
Objects at rest stay at rest. So what you do is you get a batch of dishes, plastic dishes, on a tablecloth, and then you yank the tablecloth from underneath them, and the dishes stay put. Oh, kids' eyes light up this big, and all of a sudden they know what inertia is. Then you grab a bucket, fill it with water, and you swing it over your head.
Right.
And so that's centrifugal force and whatever. So you just make sure. I made sure I put a lot of effort into the planning, and then the execution was easy. And then each kid is dying to do what I just did.
Sure.
So I asked some questions about what I just did, and give them a bucket and go in the hall, and y'all play with the bucket.
And they would see how science applied to real life applications.
Exactly. Right.
That was probably pretty innovative at that time. Now I understand that in 1982 you were given what award?
A Virginia State Teacher of the Year.
Virginia State Teacher of the Year, 1982.
And I was.
See, a lot of people they're learning more about you now than they could have known without us having this opportunity to sit down. So again, I thank you.
Okay. I'd also like to say that Johnny P. Johnson was a Virginia State Teacher of the Year, and he, to
Wonderful man.
To be in the same category with him really feels good. It was also the time of when they were starting gifted and talented programs, and I was put in charge of developing some of the identification, and then in charge of developing individualized programs and independent study projects. And what I was most proud of was that I set up the identification of and a curriculum for kids who were gifted in leadership. So you'd go around to the classrooms and you'd just ask.
Sure.
We'd ask questions like, who in this room would get you in trouble? Or if we were having a party, who would you want to plan your party?
Right.
Things like that. And then we ended up with organizational leaders, like my mom, organizational leaders who know how to do stuff like that. And then you had people leaders who knew how to influence people. Well, then you try to get the people leaders to develop organizational skills, and organizational
to get the leadership. Okay.
So in this particular group of kids, I had all kinds of kids, all kinds. I think it was perhaps the most diverse classroom I've ever had, and we did all sorts of role playing, and it was amazing. And then I taught creative thinking at the high school level for 4 or 5 years.
Man, now you said this was an 18-year span that this happened. There was a time in your life when you decided, okay, I have accomplished all that I feel that I can accomplish, or all that the educational system will allow me to accomplish.
Because I loved it. I didn't leave it because I didn't like it. I can tell you what happened.
Well, that's what we want.
Okay,
that's what I'm trying.
Okay.
I want to know what.
Well, they moved the 8th grade from Walker Grant to James Monroe.
Okay.
Okay. They put me at the high school, and they gave me a science class or 2, but they wanted me to revitalize the gifted program at the high school level, which meant mainly accelerating kids who were gifted in one subject. Okay. If you had somebody who was really bright in math, they might not be able to write. That kind of thing. But what do you do for this kid? As it happened, and then I designed the creative thinking program. So I had a science, a creative thinking, I had like 3 periods a day where I worked on individualized projects. And then what did they give me to fill the other time slot? Because I had my master's in photography, they gave me a yearbook. That's another job that you should pay double for, whoever that sponsor is. Because every parent is on your case. You have to spell every word right. You want to get every kid in the senior class. You want to at least have a candid of every kid in the senior class. You have to cover golf the spring before. You have to cover baseball the year before. And it's perpetual deadlines.
Right.
And no money. You have to raise the money to support this effort. You have to sell the books. You have to get the kids to cover the events. Anyways, I'd done that for about 5 years. I was really burned out. And my son had just graduated from high school. And I was playing around town. I played 3 nights a week solo at what is now the Otter House.
Okay.
It used to be called the Palms.
Okay.
There's a restaurant downstairs and a little club in the front part of it. The back part wasn't there. Yeah. And I played there 3 nights a week, guitar, to supplement my income.
Okay.
Because I told you I was raising my son by myself.
Right.
And my son was sickly. My son is legally blind. So I was doing that 3 nights a week. And then that folded into Sapphire. Sapphire started in 1984.
Now, for those of us who are new to, let's talk about Sapphire. Tell us who Sapphire was.
There were 3 of us in Sapphire. Well, it started out, it was just Ann Rabson and I.
Okay.
And I was asked to play a solo date at Holiday Inn South. It was the Holidome at the time. And it was in the lounge, and I knew my guitar was not a big enough sound for the room. So I got in touch with Ann and asked her would she play with me. And Ann said, well, yeah, I'm kind of learning piano some now. She was playing piano in a band called Todd's Tavern, which was a country band, but she was playing boogie-woogie all the time. So we got together, and we worked up a repertoire. And but Ann didn't have a piano of her own. We used to sneak in the college practice rooms.
Okay.
Finally, Ann was teaching a computer class at Germanna. She had a student whose dad died and needed a makeup test, and the student had a piano. So we went to the student's house to give the test and for us to practice. And the student, when she finished the test, that was Earlene Lewis, she came down and joined in on bass.
My goodness.
So the 3 of us started playing at the Holiday Inn South. And it went from one, you know how there are doors that partition off your banquet rooms? And we played on Sunday and Monday night. And the first room, they opened the doors. Second room, opened the doors. We were filling 3 banquet rooms on Sunday and Monday nights at the Holiday Inn South. And it just grew. So that was in 84. By 88, I was burned out with yearbook. And Ann had said that she was going on the road because her daughter was graduating college. My son was just entering college. But I said, well, okay. And we all decided to go on the road together. Now, that's not something you do. I was 44 at the time. You know, you don't go on the road when you're 44. But the cool thing is about blues is that you're more revered with age.
Gotcha.
You know,
an experience factor.
And also, if it failed, I knew I could go back to teaching because, number one, I was a science teacher. Science teachers had a premium. I was black, I'm a woman, and a former state teacher of the year. So I knew that I could go back to teaching if I needed to.
Sure.
But we got out there, and at the time we were playing about 20 dates a month, driving in an old van, Ford van. We got incorporated. We did our mailing list. We did our bookings. We did our own publicity. We set up our own sound systems. We did all the driving, sold the merchandise. Did I say that? Probably. We did it all. We did it all. And Ann and I would put in like 16-hour days, making phone calls. Because, I mean, a lot of that stuff is all computerized now. And every month, well, phone calls are cheap now. But every month we'd have a $400 or $500 long-distance phone bill.
Right.
And it just grew.
Might as well just come all the way up with it because it was in there anyway. Y'all got about 20 minutes of tape left.
Okay. All right.
Get yours out too. I know you had yours over here. See, y'all can do it. See, it's all good when y'all do it. It's fine, but I'm here to go. Who's that guy in the back coughing?
Who's that guy coughing? All right.
So, after our first year or so, we had a dear friend and a mentor to us was John Cephas, who was a blues man from Bowling Green, John Cephas. And he got us to play for a regional meeting of the Blues Foundation. It was in Baltimore, and he got us to help open the set. The man who was from the Blues Foundation, which is based in Memphis and is still based in Memphis, he heard us, he liked us, he invited us down to Memphis. It was in November then. And we played at several little places all around Memphis, and we got to play at the dinner.
Okay.
And all of the blues industry, record people, DJs, whoever were there. And we kicked ass.
I hear that.
Yeah, we
I
kicked
hear
ass.
that. That's awesome.
So it ended up eventually we had done our first cassette tape here in Fredericksburg.
Okay.
With Peter Bonta.
Okay.
Yeah, you know
I
him?
remember.
Yeah, okay. And it sold.
Sure.
We were surprised as a cassette. It sold.
Right.
And then so for the second one, Earlene knew some people in Florida with a little studio, King Snake Studios. And we went down there and we recorded. We pooled our little resources and we went down there to record. And the man who owned the studio said, "Let me take this to Chicago." And he took it to 2 labels and both of them wanted us. And they liked how 3 pieces could fill the speakers, quote unquote. And Bruce Iglara of Alligator Records, which is the independent blues label, he signed us in fall of '89. We started out on the road in '88, like late spring '88.
Okay.
And we were signed, and we got that gig in November of '88. So Bruce signed us the next year after we recorded, and the rest is history.
Well,
we got our first recording from Alligator on Valentine's Day of 1990. We were around my kitchen table, and none of us knew how to open a jewel case.
Oh, jeez. So this
we couldn't figure out how to open a jewel case.
So the music technology had surpassed its own artist, huh?
Well, I don't know about that.
Where you were open, you had this brand new.
Hey, I still don't have an MP3 player. I don't have an iPod.
Nothing wrong with that.
None of the 3 of us in the van had an iPod.
Now, how would you say at the heyday of Sapphire, how many dates per year were you all playing?
Well, when we were starting out there, we were doing 20 dates a month, so you can do the math. Yeah. But there were venues where you could play when you travel from one place to the other. You could get work during the week. Nowadays, you really can't get much live work during the week. And then we needed a manager, which is entirely different than a booking agent. Okay?
Absolutely.
So we moved through management levels, and then in 1992, I had 2 primary cancers. And that really, really took a toll. And after I dealt with that, then I didn't know what was wrong with me for the next year and a half. And then it was diagnosed as fibromyalgia.
Okay.
So it got to the point where I could no longer get in a van and go out for 2 or 3 weeks.
Sure.
Yeah. And now, I mean, later on, we flew everywhere.
Right.
And then we rent a van. And
once you were on that end.
On that end and make a little tourlet.
Right.
We did perpetual tourlets.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Now there came a time when you ladies decided that it was time. You shared with us the
Swan,
the Swan song for Sapphire.
Well, let me just back up and say that in '92, Earlene left the band, and Andra Faye from Indianapolis, she joined the band. So in 25 years, we only had one personnel change. Yeah. And I'm proud of that.
That is
quite
impressive. Longevity is huge.
Yeah.
Especially in the creative world.
Yeah. And we were first viewed as a novelty act. We were seen as three women.
Okay.
Then we were three old women. Then we were three old body women, because we were doing stuff of Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith. And then we were three women, old body, diverse. We had a black, a Jew, and a part Cherokee. And then it was like, oh yeah, old women, old body, diverse, and they make good music.
See.
But it took a long time before the novelty label got kicked to the curb.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was some beautiful, beautiful stuff that you all did for a lot of years, and I know you will forever be it'll be synonymous for Gaye Adegbalola and your Sapphire connection.
Right.
But what we should probably talk about is obviously you continue to be connected to music. That will always be a part of you.
Oh, I know what we didn't say is, how did Sapphire end?
Right.
All right. So after 25 years, we wanted to go out with a bang. And in 2009, we released our last CD in February, I think, of 2009, also on Alligator. All of our CDs are on Alligator. And then we did extensive touring that year.
Okay.
And in November, we filled Dodd Auditorium, and we did our final show, had a wonderful program book, and mainly because, I do believe it was because of me more so than the other two, but I was the oldest one in the group, and right now I'm 67, and I knew I wanted to do some other things.
Doesn't you look fantastic for 67?
Thank you. Yeah, but I feel that fibromyalgia some days. Yeah. But I knew one thing that was unusual about Sapphire was that we were a democracy. There was no leader in the group, and there were no followers. Anybody had the right to veto where we were going or veto the material. When we did a CD, everybody had equal lead vocals and what have you. And we divided the money equally. We never, in 25 years, we never had an argument about money. Never. So it also slows you down, though.
Okay.
And as I was growing in age, I knew I wanted to do some other things, and I knew I wanted to do it faster.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know how many more years are, how many more good years are left.
Well, I wish you many, many more.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, what was the next step for you beyond Sapphire?
Well, the first thing, I've got a house to sell. My former partner and I split up 2 years ago, and it's a little bit hard to regroup now. But as the song goes, life goes on just the same. So I'm going through all kinds of archival stuff and memorabilia. That's going to take a while. I'm working on a children's CD, and I'm working on a Gaye Adegbalola songbook. I think I might call it my audio biography.
I like that.
You're right.
I like that.
And musically, I play solo concerts.
Okay.
I work with Roddy Barnes. We do 2 different concerts. We do neoclassic blues, which is blues from the 20s and 30s, in our tales. And,
I bet that's beautiful.
Emulating Bessie Smith and those fine women, my sheroes.
That's right.
And we also do, more contemporary music and more original music. And then I've been working with the Electric Band, Miss A, and the Freedom Band.
Okay.
And writing. I'm perpetually writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 things that I want to talk about specifically. We can't get past this. Number 1, you have a cruise, a blues cruise coming up. I want you to talk about that.
Okay.
And is that with Roddy?
That's with Roddy.
Okay.
I could bring any 2 musicians that I wanted. Actually 3 if I wanted to share my room, but I didn't. See, I might get lucky. But the cruise has been sold out for months, and it leaves out of San Diego.
So people can't even. So our viewers couldn't go if they wanted to go.
No.
So we just telling them about it just so y'all will be jealous.
Okay. Yeah. And the next cruise, which is January of 2012,
Okay.
sold out.
Oh my goodness.
This is something.
This is incredible.
These. If you can, it's called the Legendary Blues Cruise.
Okay.
And if you can get on this boat, if you want a real holiday, just get on one of these boats.
That's beautiful. So then what you need to do is make sure you come back and make sure our viewers know when you plan the next one so that they can get in on it before it's all sold out.
You have to be invited. I think this is my fourth one I've been on this particular cruise.
Well, we know,
and this is the cruise.
Well, we want to know about the cruise that comes along. But before we go, I want to talk about your children's CD.
Okay.
The children's song.
Well, I just right quick, I don't know how many minutes we have left, but I had a recent honor that I'm really proud of, and I do want to speak about that.
Please do.
I was named one of the outstanding Virginians by Equality Virginia.
Okay.
Which for my activism for gay lesbian affairs and gay lesbian issues, and that was a big deal. There were 10 of us in the state, and actually the film clip of everybody's activities was really great, and it was mainly based on a CD that I did called Gay Without Shame, and which was also nominated for a Blues Music Award.
I think I remember seeing the cover for that. That was the photography on that was beautiful.
That was done with a little Fuji camera.
Okay.
In my hallway with no makeup.
Oh man, I remember that it was a beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about
a mosaic in the hallway.
Exactly when you're bearing your soul and who you are. That definitely came across in the cover for that.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
I got to get working on a new cover for the children's CD.
Okay.
Okay, and it's just something I've been thinking about for a while. Many years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, I wrote some children's songs, and Alligator, our record label, was thinking about doing a children's CD. And it just never happened. And so I had the idea, and it just grew. So I spent January, February writing, most of March rewriting.
Okay.
And then I started laying down tracks and got a copyright on all my songs in April.
Okay.
I put it in anyway. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So at this point, tomorrow and the next day, hopefully I'll have enough in the can that I'll be able to shop it, and I'm looking for an executive producer, i.e. money.
Okay.
Because I really need this CD is going to require a publicist, because I don't plan to really tour behind it.
Sure.
I'm not going to deal with those little children.
Well, having you on our show today has been fantastically eye-opening. To get to know you more than just as a musician, but where you have come from your roots, your passion for your people, your causes, your it's just a beautiful, beautiful opportunity for us to get to see a little bit of the inside of who Gaye Adegbalola is. I just want to thank you so much for being with us.
You.
It has been an absolute pleasure for me. And I know our viewers have enjoyed this tremendously. We definitely want you to come back again, and so we can hear more about what's going on with you and your activism and your causes and your quest for equality. Fredericksburg, we just want to thank you again. I'm Anthony Campbell, sitting here with Ms. Gaye Adegbalola.
Okay.
We've enjoyed
Gay
Todd for those who old school Fredericksburgians. We thank you so much for being here with us. Just hang out and come back and see us again real soon. Thank you, Fredericksburg. I'm Anthony for Fredericksburg Live. We'll see you.